Welcome to a very special episode of Football Social Daily. It's Christmas, so we thought we'd do something fun. My name's Niall. Alongside me in the studio, we've got Marley Anderson. Hello, Marley.
Hello.
Over there, we've got Phil Hudson. Hello, Phil.
Hello.
And we've got Steffen Armstrong as well. Hello,
Season's
Steffen.
greetings.
Season's greetings indeed.
Feliz Navidad.
It's not only the end of the year, 2019, it's also the end of the decade. So we thought we'd do something a bit fun. We've seen a lot of teams of the decade in the Premier League from 2010 to the end of 2019. So we thought we'd do it sport social style and make one the worst Premier League team of the last 10 years,
you always
basically.
Have to be different, don't you?
We're just negative around
Always
here.
different.
We're just negative around here, Steffen.
Nothing spreads Christmas cheer like a lot of hate towards some crap players.
Well, crap players is what we're going to be discussing on this podcast. We've got loads of nominations sent in by you guys using our Twitter handle @thesportsocial. So thanks very much for that. But it's our job to go through them. So we've got some nominations. Some names might surprise you. Some probably won't. Phil and Marley, you're both Newcastle fans and you're shaking your heads.
There's a lot of Newcastle on here, isn't there?
There's a lot of North East players.
There's also a lot of like, oh, look at woe is me, big club like fans sending like, such and such is terrible. When the reality is they're perfectly good footballers. They're just disappointed a little bit.
I think you need to rename this from the worst 11 of the decade to just the most disappointing 11.
Okay, the biggest flop 11.
Biggest flop 11.
The biggest flop 11 of the decade. Right. Should
Call
we
it
get
what you want, like if whatever works.
None of these players have
Whatever you're
distinguished
happy with.
themselves. That's fair.
That's fair, isn't it?
All right,
Yeah.
well, all right. So we'll call it the players that haven't quite distinguished themselves in the English Premier League team of the decade.
Perfect. That sounds good to me. 10 years of it as well we're going to have to sift through, so let's not waste any more time. Let's crack on with it. Of course, we're going to start in the obvious position of goalkeeper. But before we do begin, we need to caveat this with saying we should probably pick it in a 4-4-2 formation, because otherwise we're going to be arguing about formations, holding midfielders, defensive midfielders and all the rest of it.
Christmas tree formation's got on.
Christmas tree formation might be suitably apt for the time of year. But certainly one thing that never changes is that you've got one person in goal. And the goalkeeping nominations are Roberto Jimenez, West Ham United, 2019 to present. Claudio Bravo, Manchester City, 2016 to present. And Simon Mignolet, Sunderland, 2010 to 2013. And Liverpool, 2013 to 2019. Now, I know who I would pick for that. I'm going straight in, no questions asked. Roberto is the worst goalkeeper I've seen in the Premier League in the last 10 years. Discuss.
He's not very good.
He's terrible. He's in our team.
But he's only played about 3 games.
Bad
So
enough
it's
to me.
very, very difficult to describe someone as the worst keeper in the Premier League of a decade when he's played 3 games. Bravo was, for me, the pick here because he was... I don't understand why Mignolet's on the list because he was really good at Sunderland, admittedly for Sunderland. But he didn't do that badly for Liverpool. He made one horror mistake in a Champions League game that's obviously really, really tainted his legacy, but he's decent. Bravo was crap.
Why was Bravo crap?
Because he couldn't save the ball, mate, which is quite fundamental for a goalkeeper.
Nor could Roberto. He was replaced by
disagree.
David Martin, who's
3 games,
number
2
3.
smaller sample size.
Bravo's like the most impressive number 2 goalkeeper that Man City have ever had.
What?
He's a great player.
Really?
Yeah, I like Claudio Bravo.
I'm not
I'd
being
go-
funny.
I'd
Shea Given was their number 2 for quite some time.
And
so he's
Joe Hart.
So
even
he's
for
nowhere
a small
near.
period of time.
Well, Marley just said
Bravo's
Joe
alright.
Hart. I'm starting to think maybe we should have put Joe Hart on this list.
No.
No.
England legend.
He's like fell off a cliff form wise, but
The last 5 years of the decade,
2010 to
he's not been
15, he
very
was
good.
fantastic, wasn't he? And
Yeah,
Pep
I'd agree
came
with Marley
in,
there.
And then Pep came in and said,
I'm saying
he doesn't
Bravo
fancy him.
because he literally, his hands are made of poppadoms. Just doesn't stop anything. Biscuit wrists.
I think you have to choose players who have been in the Premier League for the whole decade. And for me, a lot of the players in this list, they're consistently bad. They always get signed by clubs. They're always in the Premier League, but they're consistently average to bad players in the Premier League. And for that reason, Mignolet's your man.
Wow.
He was like Sunderland's player of the year, like 3 years out of 4 or something.
yeah, but that's like being the world's tallest midget. It's completely pointless.
We've got a real
Fair.
split decision here, and I think we're going to have to really butt our heads together and figure out who's going to be in our team as a goalkeeper. I'm just going to stand by Roberto. I think, I mean, you say 3 games. I think it's been more like 7
And
games.
also, 2 of the guys on this list were brought in as certainly Roberto was brought in as a number 2. He wasn't brought in as a number 1. Bravo, different.
Bravo was the number 1 for
And was
at least a season.
shocking and they replaced him, yeah.
Yeah.
But Roberto, he was brought in to be a reserve. He's not. You can't judge him by that standard, really. It's Bravo for me all day long because Mignolet, you can't. I know Marley's got a point in saying that the point about being Sunderland's Player of the Year, but at the same time, he's done well in a poor side. So no, it's Bravo all day long.
Mignolet was the only reason why why Liverpool weren't getting 3 points in games and always getting draws consistently for at least 2 or 3 years.
I don't buy that.
100%.
Don't buy that. 100%.
To be fair, I think there's a reason why they went and spent a world record fee on Alisson.
There
Exactly.
is. Oh yeah, I'm not saying he's Alisson. But
Yeah.
he's not rubbish. He's not. This isn't about is he a bit average. It's about is he the worst Premier League goalkeeper in the decade, and it's absolutely crystal clear that he's not.
Consistently from 2010 to 2019, he has been on nobody's wish list. Mignolet has to be.
Not having that.
Has to be.
Wow. Okay. Looks
Does this mean I've got the
it looks
deciding
like
vote?
Marley's got the deciding vote here.
Put your personal prejudices aside, Marley.
The power. I think of the three, I'm going to go with Bravo.
It's victory.
I'm sorry, Stefan.
I'm happy with it.
And it's largely for the reasons we've said. Mignolet, all right, he had a couple of 245 appearances in the decade. That's a lot.
It's a lot for someone who Stefan has said is consistently rubbish.
I mean, if
Consistently average.
if
But he was
you're-
replaced by Brad Jones once, and Brad Jones was equally terrible.
Brad Jones, yeah, agreed. He was number 3.
if you give Roberto Jimenez 245 games, you'd be in League 2 by by the 200th
I think you're
probably.
being generous there.
So yeah, Bravo came in for a lot of money, was expected to be number 1 at Man City because he came to replace Joe Hart, and was generally just a bit rubbish completely. Every time he come off the line, it was panic stations. Whereas now, when you see Edison come off the line, he sweeps everything up properly, and can save the ball. And Bravo struggled in both departments, which is why I'm considering him as the worst of the 3. I think.
Well, okay, there we go. It's this man, Claudio Bravo, who's going to be our goalkeeper in the worst 11 of the decade, or should we say biggest flops of the decade. I think we previously agreed that. So let's move on now. Defenders. Now, obviously, we're going to put all these together because there are loads of defenders, but I think we don't need to worry too much about who can play where. I think fullbacks can play either side, I think, for the purposes of this team.
But we did pick 2 left backs and 2 right backs, didn't we?
We did.
But it depends
We did.
who's worse. Yeah.
Exactly. So the nominations are Ali Sissoko, formerly of Liverpool and Aston Villa, Jose Bosingwa, Chelsea and Queen's Park Rangers, Eliakim Mangala, Man City and Everton, Tal Ben-Aim, Portsmouth, West Ham and QPR. We've also got Phil Jones, Blackburn and still at Manchester United, Titus Bramble, Wigan and Sunderland, and Andre Santos, Arsenal from 2011 to 2013. Should we start in the fullback positions, Marley?
Yeah.
Who's catching your eye there out of the names I've just read out?
They're all catching my eye from the fact that they're all crap.
That's the point. That's the point of this
which
show.
It's a brilliant selection of poor players. The one for me is Bosingwa, to be honest.
Purely for the monobrow. Purely for the monobrow. It's got to be the worst. Why has none of his Chelsea teammates said, Jose, mate, you've got the worst monobrow in
Jose,
football
you
history.
meant to have 2 eyebrows, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was part of the Porto side that won the 2005 Champions League, and he came with 16 million quid. Played 4 years for Chelsea, 1 year for QPR. That was at the point where QPR were just buying names.
In case you haven't seen the monobrow.
Bosingwa's won 2 Champions Leagues.
Exactly, yeah. He's won 2 Champions Leagues.
How can he be in this?
2
this
FA
team?
Cups, Stefan. He was in the European Championships team of the tournament in 2008.
Alexander Butner won a Premier League. He wasn't a good player. He wasn't a good left back.
I tell you what, he was a much worse left back than Jose Bosingwa.
Wasn't
Bosingwa's
Bosingwa
alright.
like a mainstay during these Champions Leagues?
Bosingwa played 90 games for Chelsea in 3 seasons.
He can't be in it. He can't be in it because
Okay.
Chelsea side were a really successful.
I
side
also
at the time.
remember Bosingwa's tackle at Chelsea
Tackle.
against who was it?
I can't remember.
He was disgusting for
in the
Was it,
QPR.
corner
was
flag?
it Man United?
He's quite a dirty
I
player.
don't know.
No, I don't know, but he was rubbish for QPR.
someone
I
had
It was
it.
against
Paul
Liverpool.
Scholes.
It was against Liverpool or
Was it
Arsenal. I
Liverpool?
think Benayoun it was on. Yossi Benayoun. I think
Yes.
might have been he was Arsenal player.
Yeah, and Benayoun was shielding it in the corner. in the 92nd minute, and Bosingwa, instead of trying to, he clearly got annoyed and literally put his studs in the bottom of his back and just booted him into the stand. And I was like, that's a bit naughty, mate. Like, just go and shoulder barge him out of the way if you want to flatten him, but that's a dick move for me.
Well, what we say here about Bosingwa, he joined Chelsea from Porto for 16 million. He admittedly did win the 2012 Champions League as part of the Chelsea team. He was in the starting 11. He also joined QPR after that, as Marley said, felt like a bit of a mercenary move. After QPR were relegated, the TV cameras captured him smiling and laughing as he left the pitch. Exactly. Which I don't think amused many of the QPR supporters inside the ground that day.
No, I like that. That shows character. I like that.
So he's like, I'm not disputing that he's not like a knacker, but he's not the worst fullback.
No.
There's just no way.
There's one name that really stands out to me on here.
And I think it stands out to everyone, innit?
Is it Titus Bramble?
It's Titus.
Titus Bramble.
Otherwise known as Shitus Bramble. Can I just read out the clubs he did? Newcastle, then Wigan, then Sunderland, and then he moved to Stowmarket Town. How about that?
Yeah, but after 3 years in retirement. So 3 years without a club.
Doesn't matter.
And then he's playing for Stowmarket in Ipswich.
There's one thing that illustrates my point wonderfully, right? And that's if you type in on YouTube shittest footballers of the Premier League. Number one on that list is Titus Bramble.
Brilliant.
And the soundtrack to that compilation is Daniel Powter, Bad Day.
Wow.
So I think that sums up everything.
I thought you were going to say the Benny Hill theme tune.
It looks like we're going to focus on centre-backs for the time being then. I think we might have to come back to full-backs.
The list here, it's really obvious who your centre-halves are going to be. It's going to be Titus. I think we're unanimous
fully in
on
agreement
that.
with Bramble, yeah.
And you've got to say Tal Ben-Aim.
Yes! I've been plumping for Tal Ben-Aim.
However, I'm going to caveat this because Niall clearly has a personal vendetta against Ben-Aim.
Yep.
So I'm not entirely certain that that's fair.
Nothing to do with the fact he was absolutely appalling as a footballer.
But you have the vendetta against him because he rinsed Portsmouth of cash when they were skint.
He stole a living as a Premier League centre-back. That's why I've got a vendetta.
No,
yeah, you would if you could.
Before, he did well with Bolton. I think he played something like 90 games at Bolton.
And then went to Chelsea on the back of it.
What's the running theme through Tal Ben-Aim's career?
He goes wherever Avram Grant goes.
100%. It's exactly that, Stefan. It's exactly that. He goes wherever Avram Grant goes. Avram Grant was at Chelsea. Brought him.
Where's Avram Grant now?
I don't know where he is. I think he's at
Can
Beitar
he be the manager of this worst 11 of the
I don't know. He's definitely in with a shout. 2 relegations in successive seasons, definitely. But he took Tal Ben-Aim from Bolton to Chelsea, and then he took him from Chelsea to Portsmouth, and then Avram, after managing probably the worst Portsmouth side of the last however many years, took the job at West Ham and took Tal Ben-Aim with him. And to make matters worse, he then joined QPR in 2013. He's an absolutely dreadful defender.
Mercenary.
And for me, has to be in this team. If Titus Bramble's getting in, then Tal Ben-Aim
so we've got
Bramble
and we've got Ben-Aim.
We're starting to get the spine now, aren't we?
Yeah, I like it.
So we're starting to get the spine of a team here. I'm happy
so
with it.
are we
now the
confirming
debate
our centre-halves as Titus Bramble and Tal Ben-Aim?
Yeah.
So the other nominations were Phil Jones was on there.
Yeah,
Is that too harsh?
I thought it was going to take quite a lot to get me not to pick Phil Jones, but then we compiled this list and I thought they're so bad that you can't have Phil Jones. Purely because he was
Phil Jones has
promising,
played 30 games for England, right? He's been at Man U for how long?
Since 2011.
He can't be on there.
He's got,
he can't be on there.
Well, he's turned down I think he hasn't a testimonial.
Because he said no one would turn up.
Yeah, because he said no one would turn up because he's basically a laughing stock.
The thing is, though, with Phil
He played
Jones,
165 games for Manchester United. He's not rubbish.
Sir Alex Ferguson said that he could be the next Duncan Edwards.
That was a mistake.
He was also tipped as the next
his
captain.
career went down.
He's never, ever lived that down.
No.
Is that Alex's fault, Sir Alex's fault, rather than Phil Jones being a bad player?
No, I just think that some players who show promise don't end up being all that. And
Alex
that's what
Ferguson
happens.
said that Phil Jones could be the best player ever for Man United.
He probably,
ever,
in
including
2011, he probably could have been.
Charlton, everyone.
It was
He said
a
the
lot
very
of pressure to put on a player.
At the end of the day, he's not worse than Ben-Aim and he's not worse than Bramble. So
I
don't
reckon I could name 3 centre-halves Newcastle have had who are worse players than Phil Jones.
Okay, and what about Eliakim
That's a
Mangala?
podcast on its own, that.
We've not even mentioned Mangala.
I like Mangala on this list just because 50 odd appearances in 5 odd years at Man City and then a free transfer to Valencia kind of says everything.
And then he went to Everton, of course, on loan in 2018, played about 2 games before busting his ligaments. And being out
maybe
again.
he's not just the worst player. Maybe he's been quite unlucky, but it's just not worked out from there, is it?
Right, okay.
The only way you could make a case for Mangala is if you were taking into account the amount of money that was spent on him, because he was 40 million or 42 million.
Yeah.
But if you're judging it on terms of ability, no one comes close to Titus Brambley and Tal Ben-Aim.
Well,
so.
in a flash, we've managed to sort out our two centre-backs.
I'll
Tal
be
Ben-Aim
perfectly
and
honest with you now,
Titus
right?
Bramble.
I've never even heard of Ali Sissoko. I've just
What,
forgotten,
really?
I've forgotten
Exactly.
who he is.
Ex-Olympic Lyonnais. He once got knocked back, this is a true story, from a move to AC Milan because of his teeth. Failed a medical because apparently having really bad teeth shows problems with your bone development. So, you know how AC Milan have got the lab and stuff like that where all the players go? And
Yeah.
Ooh, it sounds a bit dodgy given
Yeah.
Serie A's history of things right now.
And Sissoko failed the medical because of his teeth.
Wow.
Is he...
It's like Juventus not signing Kaká because of his surname.
It's like Tony Pulis not signing Demba Ba because he was waiting for his knee. He described it as a time bomb
to explode?
and we're still waiting for it to go.
That's why
So-
Denver Bar is so
Honestly,
cheap. For his
Ali
career.
Sissoko has gone into room 101 for me. I have no recollection of who this guy is.
Okay, well, he's French. He joined Liverpool on loan from Valencia in 2013. He played 15 times in that season. You remember the Gerrard slip season when there was Sturridge and Suarez and Sterling?
So Brendan Rodgers side.
The Brendan Rodgers side. And then somehow, after Liverpool decided they weren't going to keep him, they let him go to Aston Villa, where he got relegated. He's now 32 and plays for Antalyaspor in Turkey.
Every average football player moves to Antalyaspor in Turkey. That's what that team consists of.
Okay, he's
That's actually
average,
what Turkish
but
is for.
is he worthy of a place? Is he worthy of a place in the team, Ali
We don't
Sissoko?
I don't know enough about him. I can't say.
We don't have that many fullback options. I mean, like one of the names that was in my head for this was Alan Hutton.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Because I was like, he's had like a decent Premier League career for basically just being like
Villa and
a
Tottenham.
complete
Oh, no.
hatchet man.
Alan Hutton is the owner of, well, the man who had the best loan spell of anyone ever, because he once got a 6-month loan to Mallorca
Oh, lovely. In the summer.
while he was at Villa, and it was in January.
Gonna
So
see-
he
see that.
escaped rainy, horrible England, and he went to Mallorca for 6
Going
months.
to raise you Julian Forbear, but gone to Real
Well,
Madrid from West Ham.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
from West Ham's bench. But no, I think Alan Hutton, he leapt out of me, and it didn't get. There's been so many because all you've really got to do as a fullback is get up and down the pitch, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's all you've got to do as a fullback. Phil Hudson's guide
I've just-
to
I've
being
just-
a Premier League
I've just
fullback.
ruined every
Just get
single
up and
fullback.
down.
But there was a name came up before who's worse than he. Butner. He was garbage.
Alex Butner.
He was,
He was
yeah.
very close to making this list, you know.
We've only
Andre
got one
Santos
right
is
back.
the other.
Yeah, I mean,
only got one right
Agro
back in this
Santos,
thing.
as I've decided to call him.
Agro Santos, wow.
Yeah, was pretty average as well. But again,
He cost a lot as well.
yeah,
I think he was 11 million.
I think we looked at him as well before he decided to go to Arsenal.
And he wore number 11 at left back. That's always annoying.
Yeah,
Couldn't defend. Out of the two, for me, Andre Santos is the one.
So we need to make a decision on our fullbacks now. So
I'm going Santos, and I'm gonna stand by my Alan Hutton shout.
Santos and Hutton for Phil. Stefan?
I'll take Santos, and for the fact I've never really heard of him, Sissoko. He must have been bad.
I think the Basingwa thing of him winning so much has thrown me, but I do think he's an absolute bellend for laughing when he got relegated for QPR. So for that reason, I think Basingwa is omitted for me. I think I'm gonna go with Santos. I think that's fair enough, isn't it? Andre Santos.
Yep.
And again, Sissoko, just bang average player, and probably never to be seen in the Premier League again. So that'd be my two, Santos and Sissoko.
Do you think we can
Yeah.
arrange some sort of reunion for these guys? Maybe on a show next year. Get Titus Bramble in. Get
I'm sure
Ben-Aim in.
I'm sure after
get
listening to
Avram
this,
Grant
they'd
in.
love
Judging
to
by
come
the
in.
theme, they'd want a load of money and do nothing. So they wouldn't be able to get past security on the door either. They're all that rubbish. I'll probably go for Andre Santos as well. That's a clean sweep at left back.
He's in.
What are the foot so far for right back? We've got Hutton, who's not even on the list.
I've just gone rogue.
Ali Sissoko. Who did you say?
I said Sissoko and Santos.
Right. Well, I was going to go for Basingwa,
Wow.
just because
So Sissoko makes it
so
on the
Sissoko
majority
makes
vote.
it
Yeah.
on a majority, yeah.
It's an absolute cop out from Marley. That.
Ali
Why?
Sissoko. He's in. He's in the
That's
team.
good. I picked a natural right back off the list.
Yeah, I picked a natural right back as well. Well, I say natural right back.
We haven't got a picture
I'm
of
possibly
Hutton. You
being-
can't have him in the team.
Yeah,
We've got
being
no pictures.
generous.
You've ruined my preparation there, Phil, if you pick Hutton.
We're being generous to describe any of those players as natural footballers, I feel.
Very true.
But yeah,
Right, midfield. We're
Right.
flying through this. Looks like we need to choose our midfield. No one's really sort of banged the drum for for any of these players to be vehemently excluded from the list. I think we've done a pretty good job.
This
of
could have been
compiling
a
the short
long list.
This really could. There's been a
some
lot
great
of bang
stories
average
in this list,
midfielders
though, as well, isn't there?
The last
Like
10 years.
Like Paulinho is in this list because he was good at Corinthians. Then Tottenham paid a load of money for him, and he didn't do much. And he went to Guangzhou Evergrande. And where did he go after that?
Still there.
Barcelona.
Barcelona.
He's
still
Barcelona.
No,
He played for Barcelona.
He's still at Guangzhou Evergrande. He was at Barcelona for
He was
about
on loan, wasn't he, for
8
the
months,
season?
and
Yeah.
then went back to China.
But played 40 years for Barcelona.
Why does that mean anything? Alex Butner played for Manchester United. We've just discussed this, and he was rubbish.
Paulinho playing for Barcelona is a different thing altogether. In that midfield, you've got to be able to play a little bit. I'm sorry.
Barcelona aren't in the Premier League, and that's what we're discussing.
No, I agree. I'm just saying it's a story, innit? It's like,
yeah.
But my favourite story, for anyone who's ever seen the Netflix documentary
Here we go.
Sunderland Till I Die,
Rodwell.
is all about Jack Rodwell,
Yep.
who, when Sunderland were literally
love it.
absolutely
Love
penniless,
it. Can you do an impression of him sat on the injury bench?
just like,
Well, my agents told me not to play.
Yeah.
My agents told me not to play.
and managed to sign for Sunderland and not win a game for 39 Premier League games. Shed loads of money off them. Was asked to terminate his contract about 3 times.
Yeah. 45 grand a week, was it?
Refused. And the rest. I think it might have been 45 grand after tax.
At St James's Park, are there like any fans?
There's a Jack Rodwell suite.
Is there
St James's Park. Enough.
I was going to say, have any fans got his name on the back of their shirts or anything?
No, mate, because we don't really care about Sunderland that much. But he's got to be straight in there, isn't he? Because he looked all right at Everton as well for a little while, and then his career's just got. It's the largest, most impressive nosedive I've ever seen.
I'm sure he'll definitely be under consideration, Jack Rodwell, but let's go through some of the other nominees on this list of midfielders. Jordan Ibe is in there, Liverpool 2012 to 2016 before joining AFC Bournemouth. Gabriel Obertan, remember him?
Gabby Obertoon was mint. Not having it.
Well, we'll come to that in a sec. Didier Ndong, Sunderland and Watford for a brief spell as well. We've also got Jack Rodwell, as we've just discussed. Paulinho at Tottenham. Ravel Morrison, who's played for 3 different Premier League clubs this decade. Angel Di Maria and Florian Thauvin. So we've got a few Newcastle representatives in there. Before we come back to the Jack Rodwell thing, go on, Phil. Bang the drum. Rest your case for Gabriel Obertan. Why should he not be included in the list? Because I thought he was bang average.
He was average, but he's not one of the worst players of the decade. There's no way. He made 60 appearances for a Newcastle side that in his first season finished 5th. And he was a big part of that. Stretching play, being pacey down the flank. He didn't have a lot of quality on the ball.
He scored twice in 5 years.
So,
He's on the list. He is on
He
the
scored
list.
2 goals in 5 years. Came from Manchester United.
I've not even got the energy to argue with you about Obertan.
He came from Manchester United just the season after they had won the
Are you
Champions
gonna
League.
let me finish my point?
Go on.
So his role was to stretch the play, make the pitch wide, created plenty of goals. And who took his place at Newcastle United? Hatem Ben Arthur, one of the most gifted French right wingers of his generation. Obertan was not that bad. We've had worse right wingers than Obertan this decade. We've had worse right wingers.
Probably.
He's not that bad.
Thauvin might have been one of them.
Thauvin was a totally different kettle of fish, and annoyingly is brilliant at Marseille.
Yeah.
But not for me, Obertan. I mean, don't get us wrong, he wasn't great. I'm not going to sit here and say, wow, what a player. But we've had worse players. We've got worse players now.
I think his saving grace is that
Have
you
you
only
watched
paid
Christian
3
Atsu
million.
recently?
3 million is all you paid for him. I
Yeah,
think
3 million quid.
That's your only saving grace. 2 goals in 58 appearances in 5 years is a terrible record.
Says quite a lot, but he's only
not
rated
even
at
the
3
worst
million.
player. He's not even the worst player we signed from Manchester United this decade.
Well, also, we've compiled a
In
list
midfield.
before of the worst Manchester players, and he was definitely amongst the running for that. He's also currently playing in the Turkish 2nd division.
What, for Antalyaspor?
Not for Antalyaspor.
Do you know,
Antalyaspor
that's how
B.
bad he is. He's not even good enough for Antalyaspor. The scrap heap of Turkey.
Phil's not having Gabriel Obertan.
Nah. Since I can see which way the tide's going on at the
There's a couple of other wingers on the list,
I wouldn't
Stefan.
be so sure.
Jordan Ibe, Angel Di Maria's on there. Thauvin, another
I
former
think
Newcastle
Jordan
man.
Ibe, it's too soon to really put him on this list. Jack Rodwell, for me, definitely got to be on the list. Sorry,
Too
Phil,
soon?
but Gabby Oberton's on the list. But my biggest mistake at the beginning of the season was saying that Ravel Morrison could be the dark horse of the Premier League season. He could make his comeback with Sheffield United.
Oh my
and
God.
he's just proved to me and everybody else who didn't doubt him that he is actually dreadful.
Ravel
So,
Morrison.
he's on it.
He joined Sheffield United in the summer, didn't he? I think he's played just 1 game for Sheffield United.
Yeah, he played in the cup, I think.
Rio Ferdinand, when Ravel Morrison was at Manchester United, said that he was the best talent of the youth players that he had seen whilst he had been at Manchester
Basically,
United.
anybody senior at Man United should not say anything about a youth player coming through because it just messes up them.
I can't believe he's back in the Premier League in 2019. And I think if he had still been overseas in the wilderness somewhere, I don't think he would have even been considered for this list. Because for West Ham, he was half decent. But the fact he's come back for Sheffield United and, you know, he's meant to be this sort of maverick player, it's just never really happened for him. And I think, like you said at the top of the show, if this was a team of flops that promised so much at the start of 2010 to the end of 2019, I think you definitely have to put him amongst the runners.
Yeah. In terms of unfulfilled potential, there's no one with more of it than Ravel Morrison, to be fair.
No one with more who did less.
Yeah, he literally had it all. I mean, Stefan mentioned people talking about him. Scholes, Ferdinand, they all said he's better than Pogba. He used to take the mick out of the first team when he came and got involved in training. I said this on the podcast before. I played against him once at five-a-side when my five-a-side game got cancelled, and I didn't realise it was him at first. And you know how you always say, I wonder how good I am compared to if you were facing a Premier League footballer.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. I was just running around and then this kid got the ball in trackies and long sleeves and a snood. It was middle of winter. And all of a sudden he just went from first gear to fifth and just ripped the entire team. We were like, bloody hell. What the hell happened there? And I looked at his face. His snood came down a little bit. I was like, that's Ravel Morrison. We're in the middle of Manchester. He's here with his mates who were a little bit on the wouldn't mess with them side. So they had a proper horrible team to play because they're all really good as well. But when he got it, it was like, when I realised it was him, I was like, I'm going to try my hardest just to get near him. And if I get the ball off him once, I'll be buzzing. I couldn't get near him. It wasn't in the same postcode as him. He was just way ahead of everyone. And I was like, Christ. Like, it's a bad person to compare yourself to because
Rio
he had
Ferdinand,
all
Alex Ferguson, Marley Anderson.
Yes,
there you go.
Well, Marley might have made a case to keep Ravel Morrison out of the team.
What?
Maybe.
Show how good he is.
Maybe.
You said a minute ago, Stefan, that you don't think Jordan Ibe should be considered because it's too soon. He's made his first
8
appearance of
years,
the
mate.
decade in 2012.
But he's not done that bad, man, has he?
I don't know.
What's he done?
1 goal in 41 Premier League appearances for Liverpool. 15 million, a club record fee to join Bournemouth. 3 goals in 76 appearances since. In total, that's 119 appearances. 4 goals.
I can see on the programme that's
and
due
he's
to
just
stand
crashed his
in
car
court
into a coffee
for
shop
crashing
as
his
well.
car into a
He
coffee
did.
shop.
He did. He crashed
Oh,
into
worse
the
goal
side of
record
the
than
coffee
Gabby
shop.
Obertan, just for the record.
To be honest, we'd all forgotten about Jordan Ibe, and then he crashed his car into a coffee shop, and we thought, oh, Jordan Ibe,
I think Eddie Howe had forgotten about him as well, to be perfectly honest.
Well, one thing he did
don't-
forget to do was swap his insurance details. That's why he's going to court.
Not looking at the statistics here, but it wouldn't have been anywhere near my list as one
Club
of the
records
worst
for
of the
Bournemouth, though.
last years.
I know, but Bournemouth have bought some garbage and paid like serious money for them.
But you think that in a side like Bournemouth, Jordan Ibe might have more of a chance to shine?
Does,
than
he,
someone
does
like
he still
Liverpool?
play first team for Bournemouth?
Well,
Yeah,
He's in and out, I
kind of.
think.
when he can, yeah, I suppose.
I don't know.
Bournemouth signed everyone for 15 million quid as well. I don't know if everyone's noticed.
Yeah,
It's just-
median price point for them.
yeah,
isn't it?
they've got one check and it's got 15 million like price like stamped into it, and they just pencil in the name.
It's like RRP stickers.
Jordan Ibe, Dominic Solanke,
But all
Callum
these-
Wilson.
All these players have got
Brooks.
like a big red mark against them in terms of something they've done badly. Jordan Ibe, can we just say that he's just kind of just been there and he's just been meh?
If
Yeah,
you want
I
to say that,
suppose.
I suppose, yeah. All right, so who we're going for then?
Well, Angel Di Maria has definitely gone under the radar in this conversation. No one's messaged it. Mentioned it.
he was world class.
Who else have we got?
Because he's not
Di Maria.
rubbish. That's
He's
why he's gone
a
under the
brilliant
radar.
player.
Because he's brilliant.
But
In the Premier
Disappointed
League,
at Manchester United, but was
Well,
still.
he spent one season in the Premier League with the price tag, and this is a
44
Premier League team of the last 10 years.
What,
Let's
58
let's
mil or
not
something?
let's not get
44
jaded
mil.
by the fact that Di Maria's been class in other teams like PSG and Real
Yeah.
Madrid.
He wasn't-
Let's
he wasn't-
focus on his time at Manchester United for a year.
But he wasn't rubbish. He wasn't rubbish. I would argue if you're going to pick someone to play on the wing for Manchester United in this decade, why is Alexis Sanchez not on this list?
because
he
Alexis
did
Sanchez
so
was
Arsenal.
Because he
mustard for
did so well
Arsenal.
at Arsenal.
Yeah, but he was worse than Di Maria at Man United.
yeah, but in the
In the
Premier League
decade
as
as a
a whole,
Yeah, but I think
Di
Di Maria
Maria's
just didn't work out for him.
Di Maria's
at
rubbish
Man U.
level is still
That's it.
different levels to most players who play in the Premier League day in day out.
the only thing for me about Di Maria that saves him potentially not going in this team is the fact that he was managed by Van Gaal, who was convinced that 3-5-2 worked and it would work, with any players in it, and he ended up playing Di Maria squashed in at left wing back, and he did look awful. But then he played him in his best position, I think, once, and he scored that amazing goal at Leicester.
Leicester, like chipped the keeper.
Yeah, and he chipped the goalie. He was fantastic, and it was like, oh right, here we go. Here he's going to kick on now, and he just didn't.
Nah, not for me.
He can't go on the list. I think we need to firm this list up.
Okay.
I'm a big advocate of Didier and Dong being in the list.
Okay, let's move on to central midfield players, and we'll come back to our wingers. Didier and Dong, certainly one that will send shivers down the spine of any Sunderland fan. They paid a club record £14 million for Ndong when they signed him. And I've written in my notes here, he was useless. The club were relegated to the Championship for the first time in 10 years. He got sent off in January 2018 in a Championship game, admittedly. Never played for Sunderland again after that. He was loaned to Watford. He never played for Watford in 2018. He was loaned to Watford and never played a single game for them because obviously they didn't rate him. He then had to return to Sunderland, by which time they had been relegated to League One. And he then had to leave the UK because his residential permit expired. So, and Dong's not had a good time of it in the UK.
Put it like this. Sunderland once signed a player from Inter Milan called Ricky Alvarez and then cancelled the transfer, right? I mean, it ended up going to court and Sunderland had to pay £9 million not to sign the player. And he's still better value for money than Didier Dong provided.
And Dong's definitely in with a shout for central midfield players. I think that was recommended by Adam Brown as well, who straight away when I said, can you think of any terrible central midfield players of the last 10 years? He went, Ndong. Immediately went in. Again, it's that way up that we're making decisions between club record fee and what they've actually provided. And I think
he was crap in a
crossover.
crap side.
Like the difference between Ndong and Di Maria is Di Maria's proved his quality at other places. Admittedly, that doesn't come into our reckoning, but you have to consider it. And Didier Ndong has been rubbish. Other than these two clubs, I can't name a club he was at. Other than who signed him from? Who's Sunderland signed him from? Was it Marseille or something like that?
No idea.
But
does he have a team?
He's in it for me, to be honest. Ndong. Any player you've got to rely on the UK authorities to get rid of is a bad player. Like seriously,
I like that. It sounds like he's a banker then for our central midfield position.
I'd pick Ndong.
We need to
Phil,
pick a partner
would you pick
for him.
Ndong?
100%.
Yep.
Okay, Ndong. It sounds like Ndong is in the side.
I'll take Ndong.
We're the only four
Can't
people
argue
who've
that.
ever wanted to pick Didier Ndong.
He needs a central
Basically.
midfield partner. So you mentioned Jack Rodwell taking a nosedive, Phil. Paulinho is also a possibility. Out of those two, it seems like a no-brainer to you.
Rodwell all day. Rodwell all
Jack
day.
Rodwell. Jack Rodwell, is it just purely because he's played so little over the last... Well, he made his Premier League debut in 2007.
It's just rubbish.
I think the decline was just so obvious and so public. It was just horrible to watch, wasn't it? He was admittedly quite a good player at Everton. Man City kind of do this to a lot of players. They go, command a high transfer fee and then just go out to die. You know what I mean? And at Sunderland, that was just shocking, wasn't it?
Yeah, the fact
He loves it.
the fact that he was still what was he still on 45 grand a week or whatever, and they were in League One, and he was just like, nope, not moving, don't have to, you're still paying me under contract. That for me suggests he's a bit of a
not a great
person
guy.
you wouldn't like.
And what was it earlier this season that he said he wanted to go to Roma on loan and to Roma on trial?
He had a trial at Roma, I think. Surprisingly, they didn't sign him, and he signed for Blackburn.
Yeah, he's currently at Blackburn, but Phil mentioned it, I think, earlier. In 2017, he ended a drought of 1,370 days in winning a Premier League game in which he'd started. So every time he started a game, basically, he didn't win. That was 39 matches in a row. So
Enough said.
ridiculous.
He's in.
39
He's in.
games. That's a whole season without winning a single game. That's absolutely mental. Looks like
He did play for
Paulinho's not.
Sunderland,
Well, looks like Paulinho's not going to get a look in here. Good goal scoring record at Corinthians. Tottenham signed him for £70 million, which was the club record at the time. Never really happened for him at Spurs. He lasted a season and then ended up being shipped out to China. One of the first to go over to China.
Before it was cool.
Yeah, I mean,
it was cool.
no, he's not there for me, Paulinho. But so I'm saying I'm going to play Morrison drifting in off the left,
Oh, Jesus. We're thinking tactics now.
and I'm going to say
Two left backs in the team, but now we're talking tactics.
Florian Thauvin will be mine.
Well, we haven't discussed Thauvin, have we?
Right, we've got Ndong and Rodwell as our central midfield players. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty
Nailed
fair,
down.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
put them
Okay,
down.
we're agreed
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that much.
Yeah. Thauvin was so frustrating. 15 million was right at the top end of Newcastle's record fees, really. Other than Michael Owen for 16 or 18 or whatever it rose to. He was right at the top, and he was this promising, amazing winger for Marseille. And after Ben Arfa, Newcastle fans were like, oh yeah, we've got another French winger. He loves to play on the right and cut in onto his left. He was basically the next Ben Arfa. And he turned up and he hated the cold. He was weak. He got nudged off the ball dead easy. And I think in like his third game, we played him against Northampton in the Carling Cup, as it was then. And he absolutely tore them apart. And it was like, all right, he's found his form. He's found his confidence now.
Found his level against Northampton.
Turned out he'd found his level. And I think 6 months later, he went back to Marseille on loan. And then they signed him proper.
Became a world beater.
And then he became a world beater. And now Bayern Munich have been trying to sign him.
Values him at 45 million euros.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
It's unbelievable, but...
If you've forgotten what he looks like, by the way.
Yeah.
That's what he looks like.
To be fair to him,
Florian
great quiff.
Thauvin.
Terrible haircut.
Rare
as well.
sighting of him in a Newcastle shirt there.
Yeah.
Okay, so a strong late surge there for Thauvin. We need to pick 2 wingers, guys. Angel Di Maria, Ravel Morrison, Jordan Ibe, or Florian Thauvin. Well, we're going to need to pick 2 of those
Please,
4.
please, can we have Ravel Morrison and Obertan? I know Phil doesn't want that,
Of
but
course,
Obertan, 100%.
Can't get behind it. I'm standing by Morrison and Thauvin.
Well, Ravel Morrison, I think's in. I think for the potential he showed to then what he actually delivered.
Yeah.
For me, despite the fact he skinned Marley's five-a-side team inside out on a cold winter's day in Manchester somewhere. I think Morrison's in for me. Marley?
I'm not going to pick Ravel Morrison in my team because I'm scared of his five-a-side
He
team.
knows where he lives.
Yeah. I'll go for Thauvin and I'll go for Di Maria.
Thauvin and Di Maria. Ooh,
Yeah.
Looks like a bit of a split.
So where does that leave us?
So that leaves us with...
Thauvin got 2.
I think Obertan's got 1. I think
Obertan's only got 1, so he's safe.
it comes down to me for a final decision. I would have gone, I think, for Jordan Ibe. I think for what it was, for what he's delivered again, probably not worth it. So I
South
think
Coast prejudice coming through
on
there
that
again.
basis,
Florian's in.
I think
Get in.
Thauvin makes
Tauvin's
his way
in.
into the worst Premier
And
League
Ravel.
team of the last 10 years. Ravel Morrison joining him as well. Right, now it starts to get juicy. Because strikers...
Oh, this is so
If you're
easy.
talking about
This
a
is so
crap
easy.
player of the last 10 years, everyone always thinks about strikers and who scored goals or who hasn't scored goals for that matter.
Tell you what, there's-
So let's go through our nominations. We've got some absolute belters in here. Josie Altidore is one, formerly of Hull City and Sunderland.
Are these just Sunderland players that we're
Well, you've
talking
got to
about
remember
today?
they've been
Sunderland
rubbish
and
for 10
Newcastle players.
Yeah.
Vincent Janssen, formerly of Tottenham for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Radamel Falcao, remember him? He was on loan at both Manchester United and Chelsea for 2 consecutive seasons. Here's one that I never thought I'd be mentioning on the Football Social Daily. David Ngog. Whoa, what a guy.
Goggy.
And finally, Roberto Soldado is our final nominee for the worst strikers of the decade. We need to pick 2 of these guys. Who wants to kick us off?
I'd like to kick off, please.
Go on.
Starting with Josie Altidore. Anybody who's scored 2 goals in 70 appearances in English football deserves to be on this list. And then he's moved to the MLS, where he scores a goal every other game. So it just proves how bad he is. And partnering him up front is David Ngog. Partly because Ngog is the only player on this list who I've seen live. Now, I saw him play against Hearts when he played for Ross County. Ross County, a team of which he appeared for 10 times, scoring 1 goal, and then got dropped and never played again. So if Ross County drop him in this decade, then I think we need to drop him in this team in this decade. Ngog, Altidore.
Wow, David Ngog, Liverpool 2008 to 2011, Bolton 2011 to 2014, and then he popped up at Swansea City for a bit in 2014, which I completely shocked me.
He won a raffle.
Looking into this.
Won a raffle to get that. Contract.
He won a competition.
He come out
to be
of a tombola at Swansea Town
Was
Hall.
that to replace Wilfred Bonney or somebody like that?
Tell you what,
could have been.
Wilfred Bonney at Man City should be definitely on this list.
Bonnie was
David Ngog, by the way.
We did actually discuss Bonnie, but he was prolific at Swansea. He was amazing at
He was
Swansea.
too good at
so
Swansea.
he couldn't
David
really be.
Ngog, by the way, Jean-Alain Boumsong's cousin.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that
Footballing
makes
pedigree.
all kinds of sense.
That-
I'd love to
good
be at their
enough.
Christmas dinner.
That's good enough to put him in the list.
I wouldn't. They bloody drop everything.
We'll wait and see. So Josie Altidore and David Ngog is Steffen's plump. What about you, Phil?
Basically, there's no way that you can't pick Altidore and Ngog on ability because Janssen, Falcao, and Soldado are just different kind of level footballers. So if you're looking at the worst, I think it's a no-brainer. I do think that Janssen was pretty awful. He was really, really bad. But if Spurs had come to me now and said to me last year, do you want Vincent Janssen at Newcastle? I'd have gone, yeah, I'll take a punt on him.
I was thinking the same.
So
when he was just not getting a game, I thought, well, we'd
have a punt on him.
We'll take a punt, yeah.
Yeah.
Did he not go out on loan at all?
Went to Fenerbahce.
Right. Yeah.
Antalyaspor were said to be interested. So
Falcao was just a flop as well. So I don't think he was a bad player.
But then went back somewhere and has done okay again. Has he gone back to Monaco, Falcao?
Yeah, he went back, captained the team, did well last season.
No, he's at... Where is he now, Falcao?
I don't know. Once we get into it, let's have a look.
It's Turkey, I think.
Of
course it is.
It's Galatasaray.
Of course it
but
is.
he's too good for Alanyaspor.
Yeah, too.
But he went back to Monaco and did well for a season or two, I think.
Yeah, he did. He went back...
but in the Premier League, he was on loan at Manchester United.
Yeah.
He said that he was going to make himself a club legend.
Yeah.
He said he was going to make himself a Manchester United legend and he would stay there for years to come. Manchester United had an option to buy him at the end of his loan spell for 50-odd million and they said no because he was that bad.
I'm not surprised. But I've never seen a player lose confidence so quickly as Falcao coming to the Premier League.
265 grand a week at Old Trafford as well.
Yeah, he was on a lot.
Do you know what? The biggest idiots out of that whole story were Chelsea for taking a punt on him after seeing what he did at Man United for a year.
Yeah.
That was mad.
Agreed.
He scored just one goal at Chelsea and in the end got replaced by Alex Pato.
Who was also rubbish.
Who was also
Pato,
poor.
yeah.
A FIFA legend, but terrible in real life.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't think there's any doubt that it has to be the first two. But for me, you've got to caveat by saying that Janssen, Falcao and Soldado were all incredibly disappointing.
Yeah, Soldado was signed in the same window as Paulinho, 30 million quid, which again overtaking Paulinho as a club record signing for Tottenham. 7 goals in 52 games, scored 1 goal in the calendar year of 2014. This is Spurs' leading striker. 1 goal in the entirety of 2014. That was against Cardiff, who got relegated that season. And he left to return to Spain just 2 years after signing for 30 million quid. Soldado, I remember watching Match of the Day week after week and thinking, he's never going to score.
He's got a great name though, doesn't he? Soldado!
Yeah, I think that they nicknamed him Bobby Soldier as well, which I just quite liked. I don't know
Bobby
why.
Soldier.
Bobby Soldier.
I don't know what it means, but I like it.
The running theme here in this list I've noticed is if you're a prolific goal scorer for AZ Alkmaar, you're going to be crap in the Premier League because Altidore and Janssen, both absolute bagsmen for Alkmaar, they come into the Premier League.
He played for Herenveen.
I think he might have done as well. But, for Alkmaar, he scored a lot of goals.
Was that when they won the title?
Maybe.
Alkmaar won the title.
This whole list is people
1 year.
who started it in Holland at AZ Alkmaar, came to Britain or England, didn't do very well, and then moved to Antalyaspor in Turkey. There's a simple thing that connects all these players.
We can track. Like this Hall of Arse player.
Yeah.
That's his career path.
Yeah.
Obscure foreign league, England, Turkey.
God, this is statistics.
My favourite thing about
Easy.
Vincent Janssen is, so obviously he was rubbish in England, and then tonight, which is, what day is it? Tuesday today, if you're listening to this, not on Tuesday, he's playing against Liverpool tonight for Monterrey, because that's who he's playing for in the Club World Cup. And he's doing so well there. I read a story a couple of days ago that somebody in Mexico has named their baby Vincent after Vincent Janssen. Both of them are Monterrey fans, and their first child they've called Vincent after Vincent Janssen.
Monterrey, who Jim famously thought came from Canada.
Yes, I remember that on the podcast a few weeks ago. He had a bit of a moment there. It sounds like by process of elimination, we could pick any of these. It seems like Falcao might have got away with this one.
He's fluked it. He's out.
He's fluked it. He's
all
not in the team.
By the way,
only
Falcao scored 30 goals his first season out of the Premier League.
Yeah.
And then, he was averaging a goal every 58 minutes the season after that in League One, because I've just checked. He just disappointed. He's
You
still
mean
a good
French
player.
League One, not English League One.
Yeah. Not Didier and Dong, not Didier and Dong League One.
Ligue 1.
Vincent Janssen, again, as bad as he was for 3 years at Tottenham, never really did it. Seems like he's too good to be
I
part
don't
of
think
our
I
team.
actually don't think Janssen got a particularly fair crack at Tottenham. So
I think he
31
got enough of a crack to
appearances.
do more.
Over
But
3 years.
Maybe.
It's poor, isn't it? Roberto Soldado, again, just 2 years at Tottenham, 30 million quid, 1 goal in the calendar year 2014, which is crap, but it looks like he still might not make the team.
Yeah.
Which speaks volumes about our 2 strikers for our team. Josie Altidore is one. Just look at him. Absolute specimen of a man.
We all voted for Altidore, didn't we?
Altidore's in.
Altidore's an absolute unit.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Big American guy. Didn't do it in the Premier League. He is in our team.
Yep.
And are we all in unanimous agreement that David and Gog takes the final spot as striker in our team? Wow, I think we've got our 4-4-2, lads, and we'll go through that full team in a second. But before we do, are there any honourable mentions, your Alan Huttons of this world, that you think, who was omitted from this list that should have been on it?
Anyone who played for Sunderland.
Anyone, just
Basically, if you go through like the players they've had, you could make a compelling case for an awful lot of players who've played significant amount of football for Sunderland. Lee Catmull, I'm just putting that out there. Equally, there's so many clubs in the Premier League who've been there for 2 or 3 seasons who players have stolen a living, or not stolen a living, just not been very good.
Yeah.
I'm talking about your sort of Gareth McCauley's at West Brom, and
Fantasy football legend, Gareth
basically
McCauley.
any fullback who's played for Crystal Palace until Van Arnholt went there.
Jordan Much would be mine. I wanted him to be on the list.
1 season at Cardiff, Tosh.
Who's the lad who played
with a lot of promise and rarely played? So I think it would have been a fair enough.
Is it Mooney who played up front for Huddersfield last season?
Steve Mooney, yeah.
Mooney.
I thought you meant Tommy Mooney, like the old Watford striker from about 15, 20 years ago.
He was shocking, Mooney.
He was pretty bad as well.
He started off alright, though, didn't he?
Scored 2 on debut, I think, yeah.
Yeah, because I was at a wedding, right, on that day, on the first day of the Premier League season, and it was a Huddersfield fan that got married that day. And as he made his speech at his wedding, Steve Mooney scored the second goal. Huddersfield won 2-0, and on his wedding day, Huddersfield were top of the Premier League. And he got married on that day, and he was like, "I'm never going to forget this day ever." And I was like, "Well, it's your wedding day, so you shouldn't forget it anyway." And he was like, "Yeah, but
yeah, definitely is." There's been loads of players who've limped around at those sort of clubs, and just been awful, but got away with it for a lot of years, but they don't get the press that they probably deserve. So,
a lot of these players, as we've said, have been decent professionals, been quite good football players, but for some reason or another, it's just not worked out for
someone like Lamine Sarko at West Ham.
Sarko.
Yeah, or even Jean-Michel Seri for Fulham,
who had a big rap as well coming in.
Yeah, was
there's
rubbish.
been loads.
Best thing he did was he won goal of the month one month, didn't he? He scored an absolute worldie, and that was pretty much all he did all season.
All he did for Fulham. Who's managing the team?
Well, I was going to say we need a manager. We've spoken about him. I think it's got to be Avram Grant. He's a relegation specialist. I don't know how he's managed to get
Did he win
these jobs.
Avram Grant got to the Champions League final, didn't he, with Chelsea, and then John Terry's famous slip off the post.
Yeah, it's fine.
That was in 2008.
Roberto Di Matteo won the Champions League, so I don't think that makes a manager.
But in terms of his contribution since 2010, he took Portsmouth to an FA Cup final, but got them relegated with a very, very modest, to say the least, points or
when was Alan Perrin at Portsmouth?
That was 2006. I think.
Right, was it?
We've jumped the gun a little bit there. But he was shocking. He was terrible. So Avram, and then he went to West Ham and got West Ham relegated.
There.
So I think Avram Grant's a shout, but there must be some worse managers out there that we can think of.
Steve McLaren,
John Carver,
Steve McLaren,
Steve McLaren for his accent, for his little island in the middle of his head.
The hair island.
There's
He is the master of the destroy and exit, isn't he? So,
Alan Pardew, purely as I hate the guy.
I'm not having Pardiola.
I hate him.
Certainly for me, I think Avram Grant's so worthy because I've never got it. I've just never got it, even because obviously he was at Chelsea and I was going, what on earth is going on here? And then
he wasn't even qualified for that job.
Yeah,
was he?
no,
He was
and then he got the job.
He was like a director.
He's like
that's the first I'd ever heard of him when he got the job.
How West Ham thought after looking at what he did to Portsmouth and went, oh, we'll take him for.
He's legit one of the game's great survivors, Avram Grant, though, isn't he? I think he must know Mossad or something, and
he's part cockroach.
He is.
He's part cockroach.
I just think Avram Grant all day long.
As for a more modern possibility, what about Marco Silva?
Oh, I knew you were going to say Marco Silva as soon as you said modern.
No. Short answer.
He's rubbish.
No.
He's rubbish.
No.
He's rubbish.
But he nearly saved Hull.
Did well at Watford.
Did it? Yeah, got him to the
Dizzy Heights of 7th or 8th or something.
Yeah.
Wow. Avram Grant managed Ghana from 2014 to 2017 until 2018, where he's been the interim manager of North East United in the Indian Professional Premier League, Indian Super League.
Carlton Cole
Says
and
everything.
David James are still knocking around in that league.
David James.
Well, James has gone now. He was on Strictly last, wasn't he?
Kerala
So-
Blasters legends, him and Herdman Haridason.
Wow.
Two absolute Kerala Blasters
Tell
legends.
you what, mentioning Carlton Cole there, that'd probably be my honourable mention, purely because of the way West Ham released him, and then he went and played for was it in India, and then they bought him back because they had no one else
They replaced him, didn't they?
before 2010.
Was he?
Coochie?
I don't think it was, mate.
Was he?
Tell you what, we might be getting into choppy waters here.
Maybe.
I think Avram Grant takes the mantle on this one, though. Are we all in agreement?
Yeah.
Avram Grant is
Yeah,
the
go on
manager
then.
of our 4-4-2 team, worst of the decade.
It didn't
So
print off a picture of him because he's a
Let's go through. Goalkeeper, Claudio Bravo. Fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think all of these are. Titus Bramble at the back, along with Tal Ben-Aim. We've also got, in the fullback positions,
Line, is it?
Ali Sissoko, formerly of Liverpool and Aston Villa. Andre Santos, the former Arsenal man, completes the back line. In midfield, Didier Ndong. Jack Rodwell alongside him, flanked by Ravel Morrison and Florian Thauvin. And leading the line for our worst Premier League team of the last 10 years, our two strikers, Josie Altidore and David Ngog. Fearsome 11.
So that is a total of 4 players that used to play for Sunderland out of an 11.
So not enough, really. But it is a horrible side when you line it up like that. And
horrible
go,
side, but-
how would they? Oh, it'd be horrible.
Where do you reckon they would rank in the English football tier now?
What, if you put them together?
if you put those 11 together, with Avram Grant as manager, where would they be? Would they be like
Championship,
Championship,
mid-table.
League One?
No,
whereabouts?
they'd be bottom of League 2 because they'd have had such a points deduction for Ndong and Rodwell not turning up and refusing to play.
Also FFP.
And they'd still beat West Ham, though, so it doesn't matter. This has been a Christmas special here on Football Social Daily. Thanks very much for listening in. I hope you enjoyed our selection for the worst Premier League team of the last 10 years. Hopefully we're still here in another 10 years to pick the next worst team of the decade.
Where David Ngog will join us
David
at the
Ngog.
age of 45.
Special guest, David Ngog. Thanks very much for listening for the whole of 2019. Make sure you continue to do so in 2020. Make sure you hit subscribe as well if you haven't already, and you'll never miss another episode. But my thanks to Steffen, to Phil, and to Marley. I've been Niall, and we'll speak to you again. Merry Christmas.